Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're having a really fun conversation, in my opinion, about comparisonitis because let's be honest, you're comparing yourself anyway. We all are doing it. We're all guilty of it. And so we might as well find a way to make it work for us and be really smart about how we're doing it. So this is the conversation that has been a big topic between Becca and I this week. So we wanted to bring it here to talk about money and to talk about what we see online and what we're comparing ourselves to. That, that good old statement of don't compare your start to someone else's finish. We're going to talk about that in, I think, a really interesting way that maybe you haven't heard before. We want to talk about comparisonitis in a whole new light, and that, it's almost impossible not to compare yourself in some way. So we're going to have a conversation about all those things that come up, the triggers, the 50K, 100K months that you see people talking about online, and how to navigate through that and really make sure that you have some strategy, because I'm strategy obsessed. Let's talk about some strategy around how to make sure that your comparisonitis, that you're working smart about it, and that you are setting some really clear boundaries with yourself around how you're thinking about and how you're looking at those things that we see online.
Yep.
So let's get into it. Let's start with that. I mean, we see coaches, we see service providers talking about 50K, 100K months, or people who have scaled to 10K or 5K really quickly as beginners. And so let's talk about, first of all, like, what do you not see behind the scenes when people talk about those things? Because I know this is a big topic for you, Becca, in the money world. With transparency around like how they're sharing that and what they're sharing. And so do you have any thoughts that you want to start off with on that before we get into it?
So many. How many hours do we have today? First of all, Marley and I even still compare ourselves to other people. And so just to give you kind of a backstory before, like a little story before we get into all of the strategy that we have created for ourselves, so that if we compare ourselves, it moves the needle in our business. It moves our business forward instead of paralyzing us or analysis paralysis, right? You're scrolling all day, comparing yourself and how not far along you are compared to other people. I just want to give you a personal story. So our last coach, I was comparing myself to her, well, probably subconsciously a little bit, for the better part of last year. And what I came to realize is our businesses don't reflect each other at all, right? So micro offers and things, short containers don't work for my business for multiple reasons, most of which is because it overwhelms me. And if it overwhelms me, it's going to overwhelm everybody else who thinks about joining this program. That's the biggest part of that. Micro offers just overwhelm me thinking about creating, like packing in as much as I can, getting the results for my clients, all of those things. So I was comparing my business that did not have micro offers to her business that had a lot, because she's really good at them and her clients love them and they get crazy results in them, right? So that was one huge difference. And once I realized, oh, there's nothing wrong with her business model and there's nothing wrong with my business model, we can both have two totally different business models and succeed, right? So that's just like a super short, small comparison story that I just personally came out of. I would say like in the last 5 months or so.
Yeah. And for anyone not clear on like what is a micro offer, the difference being that Becca's business started with a longer term 3-6 month type containers for group programs, private coaching, which was also longer term, like 3 and 6 months. And there's a lot of online service providers moving to these short term, like I've done, shorter term, smaller timeline containers to teach a really niche down topic versus a longer term container that can cover more topics over a longer period of time. And what you're saying is like you saw her shifting into this new model and you were like, oh, that must be the way that I should do it. And then you kind of had like tunnel vision that like that was what you were seeing.
Yes.
And then you were comparing, and then you were trying to hop on the bandwagon, and you realized, and this is the beautiful thing that we talk about, like there is never a loss in learning what doesn't work for you. And
Right.
you learned through trying, because otherwise you would not have known
Mhm.
that, okay, that actually didn't feel good. And then you went back to, I actually really love working in longer term containers. My clients really thrive in longer term containers. So that was like a really powerful comparison that you went through. It didn't feel good for a while.
No.
And then you had to sit back and go, wait, what am I doing here? Why doesn't this feel good? And you took so much ownership over where you were. It wasn't like this blame game. It wasn't like, oh, I got caught. It was like, okay, I tried this thing. I didn't like the way it felt. And
Right.
I think I need to go back to this thing. And then you stepped back into that and like, whoo, everything changed for you. And it was exactly what you needed.
You know the magical rug in, Aladdin?
Yes.
That's what it felt like. Once I came out of that, it was like I was on the magic carpet, not rug. I was on the magic carpet, and I was like, "Hold on to your horses, like, this is happening with or without you."
Right.
So, when we talk about comparison, I I come to Marley with this all the time because it frustrates me to no end for other business owners. There are so many things that you do not see when you see a business owner online on Instagram talk about, I had 50K month, I had 100K month, I've hit $1 million this year. All of those things can be extremely triggering, especially if you are brand new to business, or maybe you've had your business for a long time and you cannot for the life of you figure out how to hit 5K, 10K, like 2K months. I mean, let's be real, right? So you don't see the time that they've put into that business. You don't see all of the energy, all of the tears, let's be really honest, all of the crying, all of the I quit, like this is not for me, I can't do this, and the money.
Mm.
Let's talk about the money. You don't see all of the things that they have invested in, whether it be business coaching or a team to help them run the business. You don't see any of those things. And so when you're comparing your business that may be either brand new or plateaued, that's how I felt last year. I felt like I'd plateaued and I didn't like I could not get up to the next level or the next like hump, if you will. Um Comparing yourself when it comes to those two different extremes of businesses can be detrimental.
Yeah.
It can keep you stuck exactly where you are for eternity, forever. It can make you fold up your business and say, online business is not for me, coaching is not for me, being a service provider is not for me. I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur, when that is more than likely not the case at all. So, what we want to do today is like walk you through the time, the energy, and the money that can that goes unseen, so that when you see a post tomorrow or today, because you're going to see it, you know you are, when you see that post go up, you're like, oh, okay. But what I'm not seeing are these three things, and that could very well affect their bottom line.
Right. Right. So let's talk about the investments that happen before you see the big wins. And I think that it starts with, I mean, even just really simply to think about the time investment beforehand. A lot of people that shift to online have spent probably, like, I spent years going, what could I do if I wanted to work only online? I tried all the things. I learned about branding. I learned about YouTube. I learned about Shopify. Like, there was a lot of skill building that I didn't realize I was learning behind the scenes, even though I didn't end up running with most of those things. There was still a lot of time I invested just exploring the online world, marketing, branding. What does it look like before I stepped into being an online coach?
Right.
And so even that, like, I don't often talk about that because it just, you forget almost about how much time went into learning and figuring things out and exploring and finding my own way and what excited me and what I liked and didn't like and then what was going to stick. That was a big time investment. We don't see that often when people are talking about, I scaled to this so quickly. I think energy, like, they're just putting a lot of their energy behind what they're doing. Like, everybody's, even like when we talk energy, I'm usually talking about like home life. Like somebody who's young and single and starting their business online, and they don't have a lot of the same time constraints that, let's say, like, in my situation, Becca, you're similar. Like, I've got 4 kids. I've got toddlers and teenagers in this house. There's a lot of different. I'm not going to say it's easier when you're young and single. I'm just going to say it's different because we know busy moms like get shit done. Busy people tend to be like the absolute beasts. But it's different. So you don't see that somebody that maybe doesn't have those other things on their plate can have a lot more time and energy to put into skill building, taking courses, being consistent on social media, not having sick toddlers in their house every 4 days. Like it's just a different. So comparing yourself, like, one's not better, one's not harder. I'm just saying, who are you comparing yourself to? Because they might not have the same situation that you do, time, energy, and then money. Like, a lot of people can spend 10K on a course without really having to bat an eye. And for others, it's just not a possibility to get started.
Right. Well, the flip side of that is that there are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of online business owners who are in extreme debt trying to keep up with that level of investment because they feel like that it's almost like now we've gotten to a point in the online world where if it's not a certain amount of investment, then what kind of investment was that for your business, right? So like if you're only willing to invest 1,500 or you only have 1,500, well, that's small play. If you want to, that takes me to something that makes me really angry very fast. This idea of big risk equals big reward. Not always.
Not always.
Like, not always. Big risk does not always equal big reward. So when you are investing tens of thousands of dollars in something, be sure that if the result that you are looking for does not come, right, that you are okay with that investment still, that you're willing to learn and put the effort in, and you're in that space not to get an end result, but to like grow and move your business forward. But calculated risk can equal big reward. And so when we're talking about all of the money that online service providers have potentially invested in their business before they have this huge explosion in their business, you don't know what that looks like. You don't know if they are investing on credit cards. You don't know if they are investing because they have a full-time job that can support these investments. You don't know if they have a spouse or a partner that is just freely allowing, like, not allowing, but like the use of personal money to fund the business. There are so many things that can go into this. And then let's talk about the transparency on these posts. I am all for you making 50K and 100K. Like, I want that for everybody, right? I want everybody to win that big financially. And I also want you to be able to keep a lot of that money. So when you're seeing these posts about 50K months, 100K months, $1 million years, $5 million years, what you're normally in most cases not seeing is what they got to keep, what they got to take home and use for their family. And
I don't think we ever see them showing like, but here's what I kept.
Right. The breakdown of, I have seen one recently and it was so refreshing. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. And maybe they don't want to get that personal, and that's okay too. But there's a difference between a cash month, a 50K cash month, which means, Marley, you paid me $50,000 for coaching and I have that $50,000 in my hand, right? And then there's 50,000 contracted. So I have signed this client or this customer, and I will over time receive that $50,000. There are 2 different ways to receive that money. And so you don't know most of the time if that's contracted or if that's cash. You don't know how much it costs to run that business, how much they pay their team. Do they have a person to do every single thing in their business? And if they do, that's okay. I'm not saying that's wrong. Like, Like,
Yeah, I
sign me
think
up. Sign me
we've
up.
we've talked extensively that like it's not bad to say I made
No.
50K this month, even if it was contracted or cash and you don't clarify. Like, I don't believe that anyone needs to clarify. I don't believe that at all. That's your choice to promote how you want to promote. Either way, you had a 50K cash month, whichever way
Right.
you spin it. What we're saying is your job, because we are in this is so important to hear me when I say this. Your job is you.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is you. You can only control you. Your job is to create boundaries. Your job is to control and be strategic around your comparisonitis. So when you see those posts, go, wow, first of all, be happy. Like, wow, that's possible. Wow,
Yes.
that's exciting. Wow, good for her. I wonder if it's cash or contracted.
It's a filter.
It doesn't
You
matter.
filter the
Right.
messaging
Right.
through questions. Like, that is what? She's only been in business 2 years and she's already making that? I
Yeah.
could absolutely do that. I
You
wonder if
know,
she's a team. I wonder if it's not a
right.
negative judgment, it's a
Right.
curiosity.
Yeah.
It's a curiosity to know, like, I wonder what goes on behind the scenes. Like, does she get to keep
Yes.
all of that money? Does she I did get a little I got a little spicy, but it's only because I see so many people comparing themselves and then dismissing what's possible
Yes.
for them because of what other people have been able to accomplish and
Right.
achieve, and we want this episode I got spicy about the big risk, big reward. Like, I don't want you to get suckered into an
No, we're
investment.
gonna come back to that because I got some opinions too.
I don't want people to get suckered into investments that may not be right for them, and that's what I meant about that. Like,
Yes.
that's not an integrity built sales tactic is what I meant by that. Investing in your business, 100%. Having someone who's been there or can walk you through what they've been through, 100% you have to have that. What we want you to be able to do is look at a post and not be triggered by, "Ugh, why is she sharing this?" Why not?
Yeah.
She's showing you what's possible, and then you get to choose if you want to follow that kind of person or that person on social media. And if you don't, if it's continuing to trigger you, then those people either need to be muted, like we talked about last week, muted or removed, and you gravitate towards people that you feel more, I don't know, like
Aligned with, yeah, that get you.
closer in business to, like, a goal that's a little bit more attainable right now.
And you know, the other part of that is also just to think about, I wonder when they were in my shoes, what
Mm,
were they focused on then? Like, could you even let's say it's somebody that you really look up to and respect, and they write a post about all the money they're making or all the success they're having, and you're like, oh, I'm starting to feel triggered and compare. What if you asked that person, hey, like, I mean, don't ask for free coaching in the DMs, but you can
yeah,
respectfully say, hey, have you ever written a post about like what you were doing when you were at this point in business, like similar to me? Because I really respect you and look up to you. And I know that where you're at right now is like probably a little bit ahead of where I'm at. And I'm
mm,
curious what you were focused on in this place. They might already have a post about it. They might be willing to write a post about it. And when you approach someone really respectfully like that, I think they're more likely to also just answer the question or be like, let me write a post on it and send it to you because my audience is probably also curious about
yeah,
this. So like there's so much to be intentional about around how you're comparing yourself to somebody, what part in their journey you're comparing yourself to, and then just being honestly like really excited for people because success breeds success. And for 10 years in network marketing, we would have people come into our meetings, to our events, and like I just had this conversation this week actually with a woman in another company who said, you know, she doesn't have an upline that's working actively, so she doesn't get training, and she's not allowed to go to other people's trainings, unfortunately.
mhm,
So she has nobody to guide her. And I am fortunate enough that we came from in our company, like we would always just accept people to come, whether they were, you know, in your downline or not, whether you made money off them or not, because success breeds success. It doesn't matter which person in the room is succeeding. It doesn't matter which person is getting, you know, in network marketing, it was team members or sales,
mhm.
and online or service, it's no different. If somebody is winning, they're building belief in the room. And all that does is breed more success because it breeds belief. And belief, we all know in this entrepreneurial world, you've got to stay off the roller coaster of emotions and you got to do your best to keep
It's
it, you know.
everything.
everything.
What is that phrase? A rising tide lifts all ships.
Yes, exactly.
It's the same. If
Exactly.
she is showing you what she's been able to do, that means it is absolutely possible for you when you stay in the right mindset, when you don't compare exactly where she is today. And can we talk about speaking of someone's beginnings, can
Yeah.
we talk about quickly those who shifted into business with incredibly large and
Yeah.
loyal audiences and how that's not everybody's story and that's okay?
Yes, absolutely. I could talk about this all day because number one, oftentimes we see people who move really quickly. There's a couple of things that tend to be consistent with those stories. Number one, they went viral, and viral is not a strategy. It's
Mhm.
just not. So going viral in the beginning of your business and blowing up in your following and blowing up in your views and getting a ton of eyes on you really quickly is really exciting, but it is not within your control at all. So it is absolutely, in my opinion, just not a strategy. And we can do our best to create content that is like more likely to get views and
Mhm.
engagement and all those things and conversions. But viral is not a strategy. So if you've seen somebody blow up, like I think about, I can't even think of who would be right now. But anyway, I think of some accounts that I've seen where they grew like to 100K in 3 months. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. And it gives you belief. It really does. But it's virality that got them there. And they often are really smart. Like they did something really strategic and really cool.
Very
Or
strategic.
so, and I mean, all the power to them. It's not a strategy because it's not duplicatable. So throw that out the window, number one. Number two, somebody who starts a business online or marketing themselves online who already has a loyal, targeted following because they've already built a brand, knowingly or unknowingly.
Right.
They have built a loyal audience of people who would buy anything that they say is gold.
Right.
So that is like beautiful for that person because that means that they have done something really, really powerful, which is building a brand online, a personal brand. And that
Which
no matter,
cannot be duplicated without some work.
right, it takes time, it took energy, right? They invested in that audience for ages before they started selling something to that audience. And so that is not something you can compare yourself to if you are not also in a place where you have a loyal audience. So if you are starting like me, I started with a brand new account and I didn't have a loyal following from another account to be like, hey, come follow me over here. Like that wasn't my story. I started from scratch because I didn't want anyone to find me that
Mhm.
knew me personally because I was insecure in the beginning. That gave me confidence to start. So for me, comparing myself to somebody who starts with 5K or 10K followers is just unrealistic.
Right.
And it's just like defeating, right? So over time, I learned like it's not fair to compare myself to somebody else in that place. And let me also say this, coming back to profitability and income potential and what's available to you. We've seen people with 10K followers start as a business owner and scale really quickly to consistent 10K months or having a 40K launch or a 100K launch. I was a brand new coach online. And in my third month of working with clients, had a 15K month with 300 followers. And in my sixth month, I had a 20K cash month with under, I think, 700 followers. So
Mhm.
it took different strategy. There was different steps being taken to get those numbers. They looked totally different comparing mine to somebody else's, but it's possible for you. So I don't want people to get so hung up on that following number. But I will say somebody that starts with a targeted loyal audience can really lean in on attraction marketing day one.
Right.
I couldn't do that and expect 10K months unless I were to go viral. Like I had to do different strategies, boots on the ground to meet people and connect with human beings and build relationships.
And then there's the question of when you go viral, if you go viral, is your business even set up? Are you prepared to handle that influx of clients?
Yeah.
My guess is probably not. You haven't planned on that influx coming in. So your business back end, your automations, your emails, your welcoming email, like all of those things your onboarding, it's not set up to handle that influx of clients if you were to go viral. So that's just another like little, just file that away.
Yeah.
File that away.
Is it even leading to sales? Like, is
Right.
your messaging even converting? Or is it just that a lot of people liked and shared and it was something, so virality just is like, just to me, it takes so much strategy for you to go viral and have it actually convert and pay off. Because how many people have come to us, Becca, with big followings where you're like, wow, like they must be crushing it, but they're not making any money.
Right.
They don't know how to convert, or they're not keeping any of the money that they're making because they haven't yet built a solid foundation of financial skills, of money management skills.
I've had multiple clients come making over 6 figures, and their own words, I have nothing to show for it.
Right.
So it's just, you're going to compare yourself, because Marley and I do it too. We compare ourselves to one another sometimes. Like, if we're being really honest, right? Like, Marley might have a really great month, and that's a month where I'm really struggling. And we have a relationship where we can have a conversation about it, right? And she reminds me, okay, pause, stop, but look at your last month. You're you're not behind. So just these, we want you to be able to filter these posts, because they're not going to stop. They're never going to stop. We want you to be able to filter the posts with intention and knowing exactly where your business is right now, today, and where you want it to go, right? Because in my case, I was following my coach because that's what I thought I wanted, right? And then what I realized was, oh, shoot, I lost sight of what I want for my business, and I had to rein it back in. And that is no fault of the coaches, right? Like, to her credit, she was like, oh, that's what you want? Okay, let's do it, right? So, like, knowing where you are today, oh my gosh, this like lines up with my money talk really well. Knowing where you are today and knowing where you want to go is, those are two really good ways to filter these posts. Like, okay, congratulations to her. That is incredible. Do I even want a business that makes $1 million a year? That's a lot of responsibility, you guys. A lot of responsibility financially, but your team, like, that is, your team will
And
count
nobody's doing that alone.
Nobody's doing that alone. If you are, then honestly, come on the podcast and tell us how.
Yeah, that's right.
Please. But yes, we just want you to be able to look at those posts and not be triggered in a negative way, but maybe like inspired to go after it. Like, go after your goals. Go after that business that you want. And remember who you are and what you want, because that matters.
Yeah. I think we could do a whole different episode on being triggered and like how to navigate those triggers. Because comparing yourself is one thing. Being triggered by things consistently or triggered by certain statements that you see coming up, like that's a whole different conversation. I think we could go into that for days, but we want to keep these episodes to be a little bit more digestible on your drive to work or wherever you're listening while you're doing your hair and makeup. So I want to say, like, make sure that when you are comparing yourself, you are noticing it. Number one, oh, this is actually a little bit of comparisonitis coming up. And Marley and Becca said to make sure that I'm comparing myself to the right place in somebody else's journey. Number one, if I'm going to compare, because it's going to happen. We can't just say, don't do that. Don't do that. Like when I used to stub my toe and say, Dad, that really hurt. I just stubbed my toe. And he'd go, well, don't do that. Like, to try to make me laugh. It's like, that's not a good strategy because I've already hurt myself. So I'm already comparing. So how can I do it really intentionally? That's what we want you to walk away with today, because we are in control of ourselves. We are in control of how we choose to navigate people and things in the world and triggers around us. And if we can just learn to accept the human parts of building a business, the human reality of comparing ourselves to others, but make sure that we're doing it more strategically. And I think that I love what you always say, Becca, like you mute people like it's your job, because it is your job. You are the queen of muting people, not unfollowing, not out of like anything negative toward them, but just like, ooh, I'm noticing this about myself when I see their content. So I'm going to mute them for a while because I clearly have something I've got to work through, and that's not helping me do that.
When it negatively affects my emotions or my thought or my mindset in a way that negatively affects my business, you go on mute. If you're in the audience and that happens to me because of you, you will be on mute.
Yeah,
I'm not going to unfollow you, and I'm so happy for your business success. That is not the issue at all. But when I can see that it's affecting my potential and my provision for my family, you're going to go on mute for just a bit while I work through it.
We're lovingly muting you. I could go down a whole rabbit hole right now about triggers and what it means. So we're going to have to record an episode on that one. But this was such a good conversation. And I am so excited to hear what people get out of this and how they choose to look at comparisonitis with love and with intention instead of looking at it as just like sort of a swear word.
Yeah, agreed. I hope you enjoyed it. And we really want your feedback on this one, especially the spicy parts.
Yes, and we'll see you next week, and definitely be talking about triggers and all of that good stuff in an upcoming episode.